The Powers Project.
Andrew, how are you doing today?
Kurt, I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. Really pumped to be here and see where this conversation might take us.
Well, I'll tell you, when I found out about you, I was like, I've got to have this young man on my show because the law of attraction is something that I've had a great deal of interest in. I've had experience with, but I'm sure most people have felt the same way I have. Like we've had experience with it, and we've had some maybe moderate success with it. And correct me if I'm wrong. If let me know if this is your experience. I think most of us have always that when we were younger, we were told you could be whatever you want to be, you can do whatever you want to do, and yet while we want to believe that message, I don't think most of us buy into it fully because while we've seen maybe people like celebrities or someone like that who said, "Oh, I went, like I went for this audition and I just knew I was going to get it because, whatever they put out into the universe and they were going to get that." And so we see examples of that. And then we've probably seen examples in our own life to some extent. But we have a hard time buying fully into it because oftentimes the people who tell us, oh, you can be whatever you want to be or have whatever you want to have, they haven't become all that they could be or have everything that they want. And so there's this mixed message that we kind of get. And like we want to buy into this message fully, but it's kind of hard. So has that been your experience with people?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've never said this on an interview before, but hearing you describe it that way, it reminds me of the movie The Matrix, and that scene where the Oracle tells Neo, "Don't worry about the vase." It's like, "What vase?" And he turns and he knocks it over and it crashes, and he's like, "I'm sorry." She's like, "No, no, don't worry." And what's really going to fry your noodle is, would you have broken it if I didn't say anything? And I think it's very indicative of what external bits of information that come to us, how, if any way, do they affect us? So getting to the whole thing of like not buying into this, are assuming we're not buying into the idea that we can be as successful as we want to be, is that a result of all the no's that we've heard when we were younger? Is that a result of a certain failure that we experienced that we never want to touch on again? The truth is there are so many countless different ways and reasons as to why we might have a certain attitude about something, but make no mistake, and this is regardless of whether you believe in the law of attraction or not, your attitude is a huge component of this whole process because universe or no universe, just looking at psychology, your attitude, your viewpoint, your perspective, your paradigm is going to affect the way you engage with the world around you. It's gonna affect the decisions that you make. It's going to affect whether you choose to march forward in the face of failure or you choose to pivot. It's going to affect so many different things. So I think, we're faced with this really weird, complicated web of what is the external stimuli that's led to a worldview that's leading to these results. And the good news is, regardless of whether that's a negative pattern that you've got in there or a positive pattern, there are ways to which you can continually and consistently rather, put in positive patterns that will yield positive results for you. So my attitude is, I don't know where it comes from, but I do know that I've fortunately, through banging my head against the wall myself, have come up with a nice, consistent, easy, simple, user-friendly way of embedding more positive thought patterns that lead to more positive thought results.
Well, I know that the researchers have said that from the time that we're born, actually before we're born until we're about 7 or 8, that's where most of our forming of our opinions and experiences stem from, and programming. And they also add that 70% of the programming as kids that we receive is negative. So you're right. There's like all this negative programming to overcome, and I don't think, like you said, I don't even know that if people are aware that there's that negative programming there. It's who they are, and it's been what who they've been their whole life, and they don't realize it that there's this negative programming holding them back. And
Yeah.
if you're not aware of it, you can't do anything to change it. And let me start with by this, guys. The whole reason Andrew's here is because, as you can see, he wrote the book, the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read. And so I go, I've got to have this man on here. So, because that would be great if this is the last book you would ever have to read about law of attraction. So, because that means this man has the answers. And that's why I want him on the show so that we can get some of those answers. So, again, I'm glad that you decide to be on the show and give us those words of wisdom to show us how we can we can use the law of attraction to and how to use it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was really just going for the longest book title in world history, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm talking about the law of attraction now. So that's how it kind of unfolded, right? But obviously, bringing up that title, it's a bold promise. It's
It
a bold statement to put on a book, and we live in not only in an instant gratification world, but we obviously live in a social media world. We live in a world of trolls and things of that nature. So I knew full well if I was going to put out a book like this, I better make sure that I can back it up with something that was user friendly and actionable. Otherwise, the reviews would have been killing me. So it's really like for me that the challenge was saying, okay, can I make this bold promise and still get 5-star rave reviews on Amazon and Audible and do that? That was actually the focus. And I take my own medicine. And by the way, the reason I call it the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read is because I am just, or have at least been, I've been just as guilty as anyone of getting in their own way, of building up obstacles or the illusions of obstacles, or finding ways to trip myself up. Because the whole thing about the book was it wanted to answer this question of, listen, whether it's law of attraction or whether it's weight loss or whether it's love or money or some kind of vehicle by which there's self-improvement, why is it that we learn certain information that gets us really excited, and then we actually engage in the information, and then we actually begin to get results, and we still stop doing it? I mean, that's the thing that drives me crazy, that drove me crazy. It's like, all right, if you do the thing and you don't get any results, I mean, you shouldn't quit, but I at least understand why you can. But what is it about us? What is it about our psychology that we do something, we get really excited, and we actually, we don't see the grand result right away, but we start to see the inklings. We start to see pieces moving in place, and we stop. And I'm like, you know what? First, I'm going to figure this out about myself, and then I'm going to speak to that. And that's really, one of the top things I wanted to accomplish in the delivery of the content in the book.
and okay, so in doing this, because I think I have an idea of why we do these things, because I do hypnotherapy. I've been a hypnotherapist for 18 years or more. And one of the things that I understand is that, one, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind learn differently. But it's like what you said: you learn something and you start doing, and you start making progress, and you go, and then they stop, and you go, why would they stop? Well, my theory is because the subconscious programming is sitting there going, wait, you can't do this, you're not supposed to be doing this, you need to stop this, you're not supposed to succeed. All your programming tells you you're not, that you can't do this. And so we buy into that. Instead of changing that programming in our subconscious mind, we listen to it and not realizing that it doesn't benefit us, and it hasn't benefited us, since we were a child. And so, I mean, what do you think about that
I,
theory?
I have a bit of a different explanation, but I want to preface it by saying the way you describe it and the way I describe it can both be right at the same time. It's only a difference in how we're breaking it down. Or for me, it's all about how do I explain this in the way that um, the human mind can capture it and kind of encapsulate it and then act on it. So the way I'll often describe it is we've actually got three minds. And bear in mind, I'm not a psychotherapist, and I don't, these aren't textbook terms. But the way I see it, we've got our conscious mind, we've got the subconscious mind that you mentioned, but smack dab in the middle, we've got what I define as the ego. And the ego, as I define it, only has one job in this world, and that's to keep you alive. And that's good news or bad news, depending on where you are in your life right now, because that means whatever money problems you might be having, whatever relationship problems, even whatever health problems you're having, your ego knows in this moment you are alive. And what it does not want to do is it does not want to risk the status quo of what would happen if you made a change, even if the change on paper, to your conscious mind at least, looks like it's a good change. Because I guarantee you there's someone listening right there. They want to be either rich or famous or both, right? But for all your ego knows is when you become famous, you're going to get a stalker, and that's a threat to your survival. For all your ego knows is when you get rich, you're going to have distant family coming out of the woodwork trying to sue you for your home. That's a threat to your survival. So this part of your mind, this ego, it loves you dearly, but in a misguided attempt, it thinks it's keeping you safe in place. It's actually keeping you stuck in place. And that's probably one of the top reasons why we start to do something, we start to get results, and then we find ourselves stopping because the ego is stronger than the conscious mind. Fortunately, to make this a nice long-winded answer, subconscious mind is stronger than everything. And therefore, the answer to this, the answer to addressing the way the ego in a misguided way to try to keep you safe is holding you back. How do we bypass that? And you actually bypass that very easily through gratitude exercises, visualization exercises, scripting, which I'm happy to talk about. Any simple standard law of attraction exercise, whether you believe in the law of attraction or not, is going to basically be the vehicle by which your conscious mind pushes the ideas that you want to your subconscious mind. And then, depending on your beliefs, that's going to do all the heavy lifting for you. Maybe it's going to communicate and send out that vibrational signal to the universe that's going to attract everything back. Or maybe you don't believe in that, but it's just going to govern all your activity until you get you what you want. Because, for example, you don't think that that job promotion is possible. If you plug in gratitude and visualization into your subconscious mind about getting that, well, all of a sudden there's going to be something different about the way you kind of carry yourself at work, the cadence to your voice, the way ideas come to you, the way you're just impressing people more and more, and they find themselves liking you and they don't even know why. Why is it? Well, it's because if you don't believe in the universe, your subconscious mind is a supercomputer, and it knows all the things that you need to do to make the right impression to get yourself that promotion. And by programming it, by bypassing your ego and saying, no, I'm not going to fall for this time, you're giving your subconscious mind the blueprint, and then it's going to do the heavy lifting for you to get you over the top, to get you what you need to get that promotion.
Okay, so let me. So this is my fault, and I apologize because you know, I've been around for a long time, and so I assume everyone knows what the law of attraction is. But it dawned on me that there are a lot of people out there who may be the very first time they've ever heard of the law of attraction. They're like, what the hell are they talking about? So why don't we start with that? Why don't you explain to people who may not know, and this may be the first time they've ever heard of it. What is the law of attraction?
Yeah, absolutely. So law of attraction is a principle or a law, depending on what you want to call it. It's rooted in the understanding and the idea that everything is made of energy. And by the way, if you don't believe that, you're just like, well, am I energy? Put your hand under a microscope, and while it appears to be, solid for you, for your senses, you look under the microscope and you see that's just vibrating at a different, more denser, lower frequency. But everything is energy, and energy vibrates, and these frequencies, basically it's a situation where like frequencies attract like frequencies, meaning if we could be on the same page, okay, everything is energy, including us, including the devices that we're speaking on, including our thoughts. We can strategically say, all right, let me choose thoughts, let me consciously choose thoughts that will vibrate at a certain frequency and will invite that reality back to me. And to the uninitiated, it sounds really woo woo, it sounds really out there, it sounds really wacky. And you know what? I don't blame you. So for anyone saying, listen, I don't know if I buy into this, the example that I always love to give is, okay, let's think about a very simple, direct, three-dimensional reality example of lifting weights to get muscles, which I know is oversimplified, but at least we can kind of, our brains can click in there, right? So two explanations as to how lifting weights leads to muscles. Explanation number one is you lift weights and you go to sleep at night, and while you're sleeping, the muscle fairy comes and waves a magic wand, and poof, you wake up with more muscles. Explanation number two is when you're lifting weights, you're putting so much stress on your body that your muscles are actually tearing in little areas. And what your body does is it responds by healing itself by filling in those gaps with more muscle fiber, hence more muscles. Now, I know that's a butchered explanation and maybe not scientifically perfect, but I think most people would agree that's the explanation. That's the one that makes a lot more sense. To which I would ask, or at least I would actually say, it actually doesn't matter unless you're a personal trainer, unless you're a physical therapist, unless you're in a field like that. It doesn't matter. What does matter is you lift weights, you get muscles. You put in X, you get Y. And by that same token, whether or not you believe in the law of attraction, if you engage in visualization exercises, if you engage in gratitude methods and things of that nature, by hook or by crook, you will find things start to happen in your life, so long as you're not getting in your way. And by the way, when those things happen, please don't give me credit. Don't give my book credit. Don't give the universe credit if you don't want to. But at the very least, recognize that when you engage in a process of gratitude for just 5 minutes a day, or visualizing for just 5 minutes a day, and then something happens, at least say, hey, there's something behind the scenes that's doing this. Let me follow that thread and stick with it.
Okay, so let me ask. So using the weightlifting analogy, let me run this by you. People are out there going to go, okay, so, and this is going to be an assumption on my part, but I think most people go, the whole reason they're interested in the law of attraction is because of money. Because I think we all believe if we had more money, we would be happier. We could do the things that we want to do. So I think many people look at the law of attraction, and go, I want to believe this. I want to do this because I want to be wealthier. Now, you said that we vibrate on a different plane, and we our energy does. So I'm going to ask, how do we know if we're on that same plane, on that same vibrational level as money is to get money? How do we know? Oh, here it is, and we click into it, because with lifting, while you're right, it does come down to lifting the weights, breaking down the muscle tissue, letting feeding the body what it needs, like protein, to rebuild those muscles to fill in and become bigger and stronger. there's there's different ways to do it, and there are more effective ways. So whether you lift light weights and do 1,000 reps, or do a heavy weight and do 2 or 3 reps, they're both very effective, as long as you take the muscle to failure. In most cases, again, that's an oversimplification. But if you just go in the gym and you just go, I'm going to do 3 sets of 10, and it's not particularly heavyweight. I'm not going to feel, like I've been challenged, after my workout. Then the amount of success you're going to get in growing muscle is going to be very minimal compared to when you push yourself. So there's a give and take. So you give a lot more, you get to take a lot more back. You're going to get a lot more back. So is that kind of how it works with the law of attraction, or is that completely different?
See, the interesting thing is it's extremely different, and it's not a thing where putting in, because, like, okay, we'll put it this way, like when you're talking about working out, it's so obvious and so clear that the more work you put in, the more you get out of it. The thing about the law of attraction is the work that as we define the work, it's different. So I'll say this first of all, to answer your first question: how do you know if it's being done right? How do you know if the money's on the way? You know whether you feel good or whether you feel bad. Because when you feel good while you're doing these gratitude exercises, while you're doing visuals, you're visualizing the money. If you feel good, that's basically uh, there's a long story behind it, but basically that means your body's saying, okay, this is working, this is right. Versus if you feel bad about it and you don't know why, you're actually thinking about the lack of what you want and you don't realize it. That's like, I went to the example of a job promotion. You're visualizing that job promotion. If you're doing it with confidence and certainty and enthusiasm and anticipation, that job promotion is right about around the corner. But if you've been doing it every day for a year and you're frustrated and you're impatient and you're gritting your teeth and you're trying to force the universe to make it happen, well, that's because you don't realize it, but you're focusing on the lack of the promotion. You're reinforcing the fact that you don't have it. And the same goes for money. The same goes for love or health or whatever it might be. So, an easy way, again, to determine is, do you feel good while you're doing it? Do you feel bad? Now, with that understanding in mind, like you said, there's better ways. There's ways of working out and there's better ways of working out. Well, when it comes to law of attraction, there's ways of feeling good and there's better ways of feeling good. And that's a completely personal thing. Like, some people prefer to visualize, some people prefer a specific gratitude method, whatever it might be. So the better you feel in the moment, the better it is for you. But by that same token, where lifting weights, you've got to put a lot of work in, you've got to put a concentrated period of time, because, and scientific studies, they'll do meters on this, they'll back this up, because positive thoughts are so much more powerful. I'm talking hundreds or thousands of times more powerful than negative ones. Even just 5 minutes a day of feeling good while thinking about what you have or what you want or both is setting off a trigger, setting off a reaction that's going to lead to the things that you want, because you're basically setting the emotional tone for that day. And maybe later that day, something negative happens, but it doesn't matter. You did your 5 minutes, you did your reps. And then the following day, you'll do your reps again, and maybe something else negative happens, but it's less of an impact on you. It affects you less. It's something that you dwell on less. And over time, you build up more and more momentum where you feel better and better and better every single day. And things just start to happen. One thing that, like, when I do my list of things I'm grateful for every single day, one thing I'm grateful for every single day is the good news that I get. And every day I get good news. Some days it's amazing news, and some days it's pretty cool news. To me, it doesn't matter. I'm grateful for the good news every single day, and it happens by hook or by crook. So the thing about working out is you've got to grit your teeth. There's something to be said. We were talking about, rhinos before we hit the record button. There's something to be said about having that tunnel vision and going straight through that serves you in working out. The only thing in tunnel vision that serves you in the law of attraction is just being willing to do something for 5 minutes a day where you feel good. And if you want to do more, fine, but don't feel obligated, because the minute that you become impatient and you're gritting your teeth and you're trying to force it, you're actually doing the opposite of what you want to do. Whereas with working out, struggling for that last rep, there's something to it, there's something productive. Law of attraction is the opposite. You just want to feel good and feel easy and let things unfold from there. And we'll get to this, but obviously you don't just sit on your couch. You end up taking action, but it's inspired action. And because it's inspired, your moves are a lot more powerful. There's a lot more potency to them, and you get a lot more done, and you invite a lot more good things into your life.
Well, I'll add to this that even when you're working out and pushing through, you're right. Like your body feels good. It's been through this workout, but you also give it rest. You don't work out 24 hours a day. You don't even work out every day. It's not necessary. In fact, I find that with the rest that I take throughout the week, if I work out 3 or 4 times a week, that that makes me stronger for next week's workout. If I'm working out 7 days a week, my body never has time to rest, and it's always going to be tired. And it's never going to feel as strong as it could with rest. I wanted to ask you this though, with the law of attraction and with weightlifting. um I lost my train of thought. I hate when I do that because this was such a great point.
Yeah, no, it'll come back to you. It'll come back in the middle of an answer, by the way. So feel free to interrupt me. And
Okay.
while it's coming to you, I'll say one little quick little anecdote here, because everyone does everything differently, and I don't recommend this. But the best that I ever got in shape in my own life, I actually worked out once a week. It was a very intense session with Sensei. It was brutal, but it was only once a week, and there was a period over that time where I like lost 25 pounds in 7 weeks without even trying. Because I mean, I was trying, but I wasn't trying to lose the weight. My focus was not on the weight. I was never on the scale. The only real reason that I realized that I'd lost that weight was because someone at a party said that my jaw was looking a little more chiseled. And I was curious. I'm like, okay, well, now that it came up, let me look at the scale. I'm like, oh my God, I lost 25 pounds in 7 weeks. How did that happen? It happened because I was in the moment. I was enjoying the workout for the sake of enjoying the workout. I wasn't worried so much about the weight, and therefore my focus wasn't there.
Right. And it's funny because that's why I teach my clients is don't worry about the weight. The weight will come off. When we concern ourselves with our health and put our health first, the weight will come off. You don't have to worry about it. It will come off. People tend to do everything backwards especially when it comes to the physical body. And so getting them past that sometimes can be a challenge because it's what they've known their whole life. It's what they've been taught their whole life. This is how we handle physical things. And it's like it's not the most effective way to do that. So
Yeah.
um, I will get to this point because again, it's a very it was a very good point I wanted to make to you, and or a question I wanted to ask, um, in dealing with the law of attraction and weightlifting. All right, well, while I'm thinking of that, let me ask you this. So, what is it you were talking earlier about the ego? So,
Hmm.
is that what sabotages us from from realizing the law of attraction to its fullest?
More often than not, yes. And again, it's tempting to be angry at the ego for this, but it's trying to help you out. It's a misguided attempt. And again, the way around is saying, all right, listen, I recognize this. What can I do about this? Well, there's a part of my mind that's stronger than the ego. And I can use the weaker part of the mind to feed the stronger part of the mind to do the heavy lifting for me. So, like, the thing is, there's two reasons why people, I mean, the ego is the mechanism by which people fail, for lack of a better term, with the law of attraction. But there's two main reasons why people actually fail. And we'll see if I can keep my train of thought on this, because I always lose it a lot of times. But number one reason is like, okay, you're supposed to do this thing for just 5 minutes a day, right? Why don't people do it? Well, the ego's getting in the way. Well, how can the ego get in the way? It's because it's not fun. A lot of people out there that listening that are already aware of the law of attraction and have tried it and it hasn't worked, it's because you have tried to do something every single day, gritting your teeth through that meditation, gritting your teeth through the visualization, because you're trying to force the universe into doing what you want. Whereas, what if there's a method, a gratitude method, that you just enjoyed, that you enjoyed so much that you looked forward to it, that you looked forward to so much that your ego could not talk you out of it? Because, I mean, I've never met a football fan that's walked up to me and said, Andrew, you mean I have to go to the Super Bowl this year? It's like, no, of course. Listen, this fan is going to deal with the plane ride. They're going to deal with baking in the hot sun in the stadium all day, because I haven't been to the Super Bowl, but I know that people go to the Super Bowl. They're there early in the day, all day, baking in the hot sun because they want to be there, because they love football and it's a Super Bowl. And I think a huge goal for me, at least, in even writing the book and presenting methods, is we got to find methods that are so fun and also fast, because we're busy. So fun that you can do it for 5 minutes a day and your ego can't talk you out of it very easily. Now, with that in mind, because there's one other thing that trips us up, it's along these lines. The reason that a lot of people, again, I hate to use the word fail, but it clicks. The reason people fail with the law of attraction is because they do methods for the sake of getting the result. To which people say, well, duh, why else would I do the methods? Why would I even think about buying your book? Why would I check out your YouTube channel? Why would I watch The Secret if I wasn't going to do the methods to get the result? Well, again, if you're doing the method to get the result, what you don't realize is that your ego has tricked you into focusing on the lack of what you want, because you're doing the thing to undo the thing that isn't there. Whereas if you do the method for the sake of enjoying the method, for the sake of just enjoying that moment, then you're going to indirectly send out the vibes that you have what you want, whether you believe in the universe or you just believe in your subconscious mind. Then things are going to work. And same goes for working out, by the way. When you enjoy that workout, when you look forward to it, you get a lot more done. And by the way, you get injured a lot less, because when you're trying to force it, you probably try to do something the wrong way. You might hurt your elbow or a knee or a joint. But if you're enjoying it, you're in the flow, you know when it's time to step back, you know when it's time to push forward. We intuitively know. Our gut knows everything. Our subconscious mind knows everything. Our instincts know everything. Same thing goes with law of attraction. If you could find a way of enjoying it and just do the method for feeling good in that moment for just 5 minutes, thinking about what you have or what you want or both, that's a sweet spot. That's where the magic really is.
And yeah, you make a good point. That's very true. People, like for me, lifting weights has always been something I've loved since the day I picked up my first weights when I was a kid. I fell in love immediately. So to me, it was never a chore. It was something like you said earlier. I looked forward to getting up and working out the next day. I looked forward to my workouts, and I know most people do, oh, you're crazy. I can't. They hate working out, and I think a lot of it has to do with, like you said, their perception and their perspective on things. And I bring this across to people a lot of times who don't like walking or running. They despise the act of doing either. And I said, and I get them to close their eyes. And I go, I want you to imagine yourself in a wheelchair and you can't move your legs and you'll never walk again. You don't have that ability. You'll always be stuck in that wheelchair. What do you think the person in that wheelchair feels like? What do you think they would think if they could walk or run again? How do you think they would feel about that if they could just get out of that chair and be able to walk again? And I go, that's what you need to look at. The whole thing where you talk about gratitude. Be grateful that you have legs that work, that you can walk, that you can run, instead of complaining about the fact that you can walk and run. And just by changing your perspective can change how you feel about doing any one particular thing or anything for that matter.
Yeah, you brought up, I mean, you brought up a lot of gold in there. There were two choice pieces that I'm extrapolating from that answer that I think are so valuable. One, you used the word chore. And the thing is, that's the thing about this, whether it's working out or whether it's the law of attraction, whatever it might be, it's got to be a choice rather than a chore. It's got to be something that you get to do, not something that you have to do. Once there's commitment, once there's obligation, there's resistance and it won't get done. And it kind of reminds me of, I remember, after I took a break from sensing, I joined a gym, even though like I prefer martial arts. I prefer punching and kicking. That keeps me engaged. I remember going to a gym and I saw this woman on a treadmill, and she had a magazine in front of her and she was looking at a TV. And my first thought was like, this woman is bored on this treadmill. She's never going to reach her goals because she hates what she's doing. You've got to enjoy that exercise, whether it's a physical exercise in the gym or it's a law of attraction manifestation exercise. It's got to be something that you actually enjoy, something that you look forward to. And you brought up a really good point because, people, again, their ego getting in the way. They love to tell themselves that they can't visualize. They love to tell themselves that they can't feel gratitude. How do they do it? You gave a very extreme version that sometimes they give to people that are struggling, where it's like, listen, if you don't know what to be grateful for, think about the things in your life right now and imagine someone was going to take them from you. And the only way you can keep them is if you can explain what value they hold for you. Like even this device I'm speaking to you on, it's like, oh my God, listen, why am I grateful for this laptop? Well, I run most of my business on it. I'm having this conversation with Kurt. I get to be on his podcast. This microphone is so awesome. It exports all my videos for YouTube. It's where my prior laptop is where I wrote a book that changed my life completely and changed my business completely. Why would I not be grateful for these things? Why would I not be grateful for the air in my lungs? Why would I not be grateful for my heart that's beating my chest? It's been beating my chest every second of every minute, of every hour, of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year, of every decade that I've been alive. Why would I not feel gratitude for that? So you hit on such a wonderful point that this is easier than you think it is when you give yourself the opportunity and you have the right frame of mind and the right mindset.
I remember what it was I wanted to say. And you're right. Everything you just said is and actually it actually lends itself into what I'm about to say. You mentioned earlier about the positivity part of being of saying, that that you expect positive things to happen throughout the day, and they do. Amazing things. Sometimes they're very cool things. Sometimes they're amazing things, and very much like what you were talking about with the law of attraction, it applies to working out as well. So when I first start clients on eating right, working out, I said this is what's going to happen. In the beginning, it may be a little tough because this is something new to you. This is something that your body's not used to doing, and it's going to be aching because it's sore because it hasn't done anything except sit on the couch for the past 10 years. So yes, you're going to feel a little discomfort in the process. But as you go along the process, what you're going to find is that you're going to want to start doing more. Your body starts feeling good because it's moving, it's exercising, and all of a sudden now you don't have to convince yourself to go on the walk. Your body's telling you, I want to go on the walk. You don't have to convince yourself not to eat the junk food. Your body's saying, I don't want that stuff anymore. I like the good food that you're feeding me. And very much what you were talking about with the positivity, I think that if, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but as you focus on being positive and coming from a place of abundance, what happens is that you want less and less negativity and scarcity in your life. So it's not a matter you know of consciously shutting off the news with all the negativity. Your mind goes, I don't want this garbage in my head. Like I don't want to
Mm.
hear about this. And so you don't allow yourself to sit in front of a TV for hours on end listening to negative news and or allowing negative people in your life nearly as much as you did before you started this. Would you say that would be correct? Or
Yeah, I mean, it's all about making good choices, and we'll go into the little weird order because usually I'll talk about this in the beginning of an interview because I think it gives people valuable context when they hear what I'm talking about. But just to explain the reason I believe so fervently in this, to my experience with this was like I learned about the law of attraction back in 2004 as a young entrepreneur trying to make it, and I was looking for any modality I could, law of attraction, positive thinking, whatever it might be, just to be more successful. And I bumped around for 4 years. I had hits, I had misses, I had successes, I had failures, but law of attraction was never reliable. We'll put it that way. I would later find out that I was actually the one who was unreliable. But things came to a head in 2008 where basically I had a really bad week where the business I had been struggling with for years, I finally quit on it. And the reason I quit on it was because a relationship I was in for 3 years, that was on the brink and I wasn't giving it enough energy because I was so desperately trying to keep myself in business, right? Anyway, I throw in the towel. I'm like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I quit the company, but it was too little too late because 3 days later, this girl, she breaks up over text. Not even a phone call. I mean, in person would have been nice, but even a phone call would have been nice, but over text. So
This is Britney
this is
Spears.
me, Kurt. I'm waking up on Monday with everything, even though it wasn't fun, it was still everything. I'm waking up Friday with like 90% of my life gone. And I basically had to look in the mirror and be like, listen, something's got to change here. And I had this weird moment of stubbornness and indignation and simultaneous epiphany. We're like, well, that law of attraction thing kind of worked whenever I actually started and before I stopped. That, I later understood like it was the ego holding me back. I'm like, what if? What if I actually started again and I didn't stop? What if I did 5 or 10 minutes a day of the same gratitude methods and the same visualization methods? What if I even tweak them to make them easier and more enjoyable for me to do so that strategically that I can do this? And here's the part that I really want your audience to hear. I was so shook up by the whole thing and so like, frustrated with where my life was. I had the attitude of like, listen, I don't care what happens. I don't care when it happens. I don't care why it happens. I don't care how it happens. I'm going to go all in with this thing for as long as it takes just to see what happens. I made that commitment like no matter what. And I would hope most people don't have to get to that point. I would hope that they can just find something that's enjoyable enough that they'll stick with it. But me, I was motivated. And here's the cool thing. As soon as I made that decision, everything changed almost like a movie. Like 2 weeks later, I felt better, which is saying a lot with a broken heart. I wasn't 100%, but I was a hell of a lot better than I should have been. 3 months later, I was in a brand new relationship, a way healthier one with someone who understood me a lot better. 4 months later, I was making more money than at any point in my life before then. And 6 months later, everything had changed. I was in the best shape of my life. I was through that period where I lost those 25 pounds. I was running on all cylinders. I was waking up happy and fulfilled. And I learned the hard way that I don't know if this is the law of attraction. I don't know what this thing is, but whatever this thing is, it works when you work it. So what you can do for yourself, the best thing you can do for yourself is strategically find something that you can do that you'll enjoy enough that it's not a commitment, it's not a chore, that you can just do 5 minutes a day so that you can build up that momentum and see what happens. And by the way, if I'm either lying or I'm deluded right now, studies have shown that feeling gratitude with nothing to do with law of attraction, feeling gratitude will improve your sleep. It'll increase your confidence. It will reduce your anxiety. That has all these positive benefits. So even if I'm wrong about this law of attraction thing, choosing to do 5 minutes of gratitude every single day is a win in and of itself in the moment. So give yourself that win. And then when the other stuff happens, credit me or don't credit me. Credit the universe or don't credit the universe. I don't care. But again, if it does happen, at least recognize it so that you can say, okay, I put an X, I got Y. Let me keep putting X in and see how much Y I get. Let's see how much I actually get out of this effort, how much momentum I can build, how great things can really get in defiance of whatever old paradigms I may have had in the past.
So it sounds like what you're saying is to put yourself in this state of gratitude and then get out of your own way.
Yes.
Is
And
that
just be willing to say, listen, maybe today for 5 minutes, I'm going to feel wonderful. Or maybe I'm just gonna feel a little good. And you know what? Whatever happens, happens. I am open and accepting. I don't care what happens, when it happens, how it happens. I mean, I'm gonna focus on what I want. I know what I want. And I'm gonna make that the core part of my visualizations and the core part of my gratitude or whatever it might be. But I'm not gonna be very attached to the how or the when, because I know in my personal experience that when I let go of the how and the when, it often comes better than I would have imagined and also comes faster than I would have needed. So I'm strategically taking myself out of that place to leave an open invitation to the universe if you believe in that, or your subconscious mind if you believe in that, or both if you believe in the combination of that, but leaving that open ended so that you're not getting in your own way, so that you're not trying to force something. Because I think sometimes people they want to succeed and they don't know how they can do it. And I'm saying, listen, your lack of understanding of how it could happen is actually a gift and not a curse. Because now that you know that you don't know how it could happen, you can leave those details to the universe. You can still deal with your thing. Take inspired action and deal with the part that you're in control of, but the part that you're not in control of, give that part up. Focus on what you can handle. I'm a New Yorker. This is why I was such a big Derek Jeter fan. Jeter was so successful. He was so clutch because he always focused on what he could control. And even people that don't like the Yankees, they always respect Jeter because Jeter's Jeter, right? And I was always a huge fan. I was always inspired by he worried about what he can do. And look at the amazing things that happened after that. He worried about connecting with the ball. Well, he went 5 for 5 and hit a home run that hit his 3,000th hit. He had that the first home run in November. Like all these amazing things. All he was trying to do was connect, and the rest took care of itself, and that's why he's Captain Clutch.
Yes, well, um, you're right. You have to respect Derek Jeter, regardless if you're a Red Sox fan like me. But
Yeah, man, dude, I'm with. It's like you got to respect David Ortiz, right? Even as a
right,
Yankee fan, like, listen, the dude
right,
got it done. He killed me. I hated him. I respect him. He got it done.
exactly. Um, so something came to mind here, and I'm personally not a religious person, but I know people who believe, like, they believe in God, and and a lot of times they'll pray for things, and then their prayers won't be answered. And then, as Garth Brooks' song said, thank God for unanswered prayers. That we find out later on, wow, I thought this is what I really wanted and I didn't get it. And now I see why I didn't get it. And thank goodness I didn't get it. Do you think that works with the law of attraction as well? Like you have your mind set on something, you go, this is what I want, and then it doesn't come to fruition. Could it be that maybe that whether it's your subconscious mind knowing, going, hey, you really don't want this, or it's the universe telling you, or whatever? Do you think the law of attraction works in that way as well?
I think when you don't get what you want, that's one of the possibilities is because deep down it's not right for you. But also I'd say, I don't necessarily separate the law of attraction and God because it all comes down to, like, first of all, let's not say law of attraction, let's say universe. I don't separate universe and God in the sense that, like, listen, if you're religious or you believe in anything along these lines, it's with the understanding that regardless of the format, this is about an intelligence and a power that's greater than you, that stretches outside of you, that's outside the confines of who you are, that has the ability to bring things to you. I'd also say a lot of people, sometimes they pray for something and they don't get it. It's because, listen, are you begging God or are you thanking God? I would argue, and I would recommend and suggest that you thank God, because that's to me, and I'm not right about this, I'm not the final word, but I would say strategically, in my experience, it's way more powerful to thank God than to beg God. It's way
So,
more powerful to thank the universe than to beg the universe.
so
It's the mindset with which you're approaching this. And looks like you have something to say on that one.
yeah, I'm so sorry, because I know people are going to think this, and in their head they're going to go, so you want me to thank God for something I don't have? Like, so if I'm poor and I want money and I'm not begging God for money, I want to thank him for money, but I don't have money, why am I
Mm.
thanking him for something I don't have?
So
Or
let me ask, yeah, yeah.
universe, or whoever, or whatever.
So I'd say this. Imagine, all right, you're down on your luck right now. And imagine 6 months from now, you were going to be rich. Now, between now and 6 months, by the way, you don't go from poor to rich. You get there, more and more money comes. But imagine, anyone out there, okay, you're poor, but listen, God is going to give you, or the universe is going to give you a boatload of money in 6 months. Don't you want to thank him now? Don't you want to say, listen, all right, I now that I know this is coming, let me show appreciation? Or do you want to, like, be like, harumph, I'm going to wait. I'm going to see it when I believe it, which is really just saying, which is really, by the way, for religious people, it's screaming to God that you don't believe in God, but whatever. It's like, if you knew this was on the way, would you not start thanking right away? Why does it have to be here physically yet in order for you to thank it? I would say strategically, thank in advance, because you're either inviting God to give it to you, or you're inviting the universe to give it to you, or you're inviting your subconscious mind to open up the floodgates and give you the ideas and the activities and the actions that are going to get you there. It's a really powerful counterintuitive thing to be grateful in advance, but that's a secret trick. That's if you can find a way to be grateful for what you have now, and or grateful for what's on the way. By the way, you don't have to be grateful for what's on the way. Be grateful for what you have right now. Again, even if you don't have money, that heart beating in your chest, those legs to walk, the legs to walk to that job interview so that you can get that job, so you can get that money. What can you be grateful for now or in the future, or a combination, whatever it might be? But trust me when I say that strategically, it will lead to great things. And if you don't believe me, the worst that could happen is you try this for 30 days and you feel good, and physiologically you serve your body in those 5 minutes.
Well, I agree. I agree with you. I can tell you this because I made a conscious effort to look at things differently. When I would drive, I'm telling you, this crazy. Wherever I would drive to, I always ran into the biggest buttheads on the road, without a doubt. Seriously, I mean, every day was frustrating because of the way people drove. And I told my friend this, and my friend's kind of a like, happy-go-lucky kind of guy, never, never lets anything get to him. And I said, but you don't understand. You don't understand what happens to me. And so we were at this restaurant, and we were in this parking lot that was pretty much empty, pretty much an empty parking lot. And so we had just had this conversation. I'm driving to leave the restaurant, and this car comes out of nowhere in the parking lot, like crossing across, the lines and stuff, and cuts in front of me. And I have to stop, otherwise I was going to hit him. And I look at my friend, I go, do you see what do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean? At some point I realized I was attracting these idiots towards me because I believed they were there. They were there. So,
Yes.
and they would show up and go, okay, Kurt, this is what you're attracting. Here you go, sort of thing. And so I changed the way I thought and go and not anticipating a bunch of buttheads driving around me. And what I found was less and less. It became less and less to where I didn't have to deal with this any longer. So I completely get that. Um, and you talk about, and I know this is an action when you talk about, expressing gratitude, but you and I both know that beyond just belief, that there it takes more action than just sitting on the couch going, I believe and I'm grateful. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, we quick little backstage pass to your show, because I think I want to give you credit here, and I want your audience to know how much you care about the show, as if it's not already obvious. Kurt vets his guests. He doesn't just pop someone on. He chats with them first and make sure that they're actually going to contribute value. We had a conversation about this, right? Ask that question one more time, please, just so I can answer it the right way for you.
About the action, about not just
Yeah.
on your butt. Yeah, because
So what I said in our pre-conversation is I am a huge proponent of sitting on your couch to a point. Meaning I'm all for sitting on your couch and meditating and not taking action yet, but more as a strategic way of freeing up your energy or freeing up your psychology, or whatever it might be, so that the ideas will flood in. But then when the ideas come, when they're inspired, you don't take action out of a lackful state of mind. You take action out of an abundant state of mind. And when that happens, you take that action. I mean, this book, I in one sense you can say it took me 16 years to write it. In another sense, you can say I mapped it out for a month and I wrote it in 9.5 weeks. I was taking inspired action for 9.5 weeks, which is really fast for most people, but those weren't easy 9.5 weeks. I was waking up early and then staying up till like 4 a.m., but it was a labor of love. I was passionate about it. So I'm not saying inspired action is always going to be fun, although often it is, but it is going to be something where you're compelled to do it, not out of a state of lack, but out of a state of, this feels good. This is the right thing to do. I'm going to move forward with this. So, yes, you need action, but also I would say people should give themselves a little breathing room if they need it, just to kind of like set in, settle down, and see what ideas come to them. I'm sure we might even disagree on this, but maybe we don't. I'm not in a huge rush. I'm a proponent, like, give yourself a couple of weeks to let things marinate or percolate or whatever word you want to use, to see what kind of emerges from there.
no, I completely agree with you. I think what you just said was wise. I think that, sometimes people feel like there has to be action, and so they start to take action even though that action isn't inspired, and they're kind of spinning their wheels and for no reason, and using energy that doesn't need to be used. And so I think that, like what you're saying, sit on the couch for a couple of weeks or do whatever you need to do until you receive that inspired action, so that the action that you take has meaning to it,
Yes.
and it will yield, fruit
And
for you.
And if I may say one more thing, because you, in this conversation, you clarified something where it's like, well, I prefer to walk out in nature. And I'm glad that you brought that up in that conversation. I want to bring this up here because I think this, by the way, is why I think sometimes people struggle with law of attraction books. They take things so literally and they take someone at their word. When I say sit on your couch, That's if that works for you. Maybe your meditation of doing nothing is walking out in the woods, barefoot on the grass, or maybe it's getting a massage, or maybe, you know what I mean? Do something where you're decompressing and you're just breathing and giving yourself space. But for anyone that might be saying, all right, I got to do this literally because I want to make more money than ever before in 4 months, the way Andrew did. Um, do what works for you. This is always a personal decision. This is why, by the way, in the book, I'm very crystal clear in the instructions that I give for each method, but simultaneously, if someone doesn't want to do it by the numbers, they're always free to tweak the steps. If there's a certain way of doing it that feels better for them, it's always a personal thing. Do it your way. Relax your way, decompress your way, receive your ideas your way, take inspired action your way. Do it in a way that works for you, because that's where you're going to get the most power, the most potency, the most efficiency, and the better results.
I think that's very important. That's a very important point that you made because, again, I think you're right. I think people buy like they read a book and they think they have to do it exactly the way the author did it, and what worked for them, and things work differently for everyone. I know people who can lay out on the beach, and they can lay on the beach for 8 hours a day, and they can think, and that's where they do their best thinking. And for me, I would be in, like, as much as I love the beach, I have to be playing volleyball, throwing the frisbee, or, swimming, something. I can't just lay on the beach. That would drive me crazy. But for some people, that's what works for them to get to where they're at. And as we had talked about before the show, uh, when, as you said, I was betting, which was very accurate.
Yeah,
Um,
no, and by the way, I mean that out of pure respect and joy. I love that you did that. And I wanted to share that with your audience because I don't know if people did. You care so much about this show, and I think that in and of itself, whether it's me as a guest today or anyone else, I think that's another big reason for people to pay close attention, because whether or not the insights that you reveal on each show are valuable in that moment, there is true intent for help there. And I think that people should listen and perk their ears up. This isn't just some fly by night thing for you. You care, and I think that's really important. And I want to bring awareness to that, because I hope, again, whether it's this conversation or another interview, it'll help someone listening right now pay closer attention and then implement something that they learn, and they'll be a lot more successful because of it.
well, thank you. Those are very kind words, and I really do appreciate you saying that. So thank you very much. Um, so when we're doing these things, that for me, like you said, I prefer going on walks. When I go on walks, there's only two places that I have my epiphanies, that I have these mastermind thoughts, and I go. One is when I'm walking, and the other one's when I'm on the toilet. Those two places I can sit there and I come up with the most ingenious ideas sometimes. And so with that, you and I talked about, I always have my phone on me, because if I don't put it in the notes what I thought about, by the time I get home, I'll go, I don't remember what I said.
Yeah.
I'll lose it. So it's important that wherever it is, whatever it is that you guys are doing, make sure that you have your phone or a pen and paper or something that you can write these thoughts down, because I promise you, you'll regret it if you don't, because you're not going to remember later on, even though you tell yourself you're going to remember later on, and then that thought will be gone, and it may not come back. And I've had that happen, and I always feel a loss,
Yeah.
because I know when I have good ideas, and then it bothers me when I let them go that easily. So
And if I may, one thing to add on to that is, if you're out in public and you have an idea, and the fastest way of doing it is like actually speaking rather than typing, because anyone out there doesn't type very fast, you have to very quickly assess whether, let's say you think this idea sounds embarrassing to say it out loud, you've got to assess whether it's worth being embarrassed or not. And what I mean by that is, there's been a few occasions, and I don't let it happen anymore, I don't care about being embarrassed, but there was a few occasions where I was embarrassed to say the idea because it sounds silly out loud if no one had context. So I gave a shorthanded note. And then a week later, when I heard the note, I didn't understand the context or the idea of, oh, I saw the shorthand, that made no sense to me. So to everyone out there, like, if you get a brilliant idea and it's really brilliant, but it sounds silly and there's someone else out there, just me saying maybe it's worth it to be embarrassed or feel silly. You want to get that idea on paper in full detail, no matter how silly it might seem out loud.
yes, I completely agree with you there as well, because you're right. I've written things down, and I go, why did I write that down? It doesn't make any sense to me now. But at the
Yeah.
time, it was great, and I don't remember what the context was, And so you're right. So yeah, definitely put the details down with it so that when you come back to it, you'll understand why you wrote those things.
Yeah.
So beyond the gratitude and stepping aside and pulling the ego out, what else can people do to make the law of attraction work for them in the best way possible, to be the most effective it can be?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, I'll say this. In the end, the most effective is really just the willingness to find a method that feels good, or more than one method, and just do for 5 minutes a day. I will say this because I kind of teased it at the beginning of the conversation. Um, let's talk about scripting. And I think the thing is like, well, going to visualization, some people struggle with visualization, whether they actually struggle or they're just telling themselves that they struggle, which is just as bad, right?
Exactly.
Well, okay, visualization, we're told, is such a powerful way of using the law of attraction, of using our psychology to manifest what we want. If you're having trouble with it, well, then you're kind of screwed, right? Well, not so much. So one method that you can do, I call scripting, which, by the way, I didn't invent this. I don't even know who invented the term scripting, but it's basically journaling about your life in the present tense as if you're already living your dream life. So, I have this thing called story scripting where you're speaking a story, where you're just detailing all the things that are going on in your life. And the thing about it is, whether you're writing it by hand or you're typing it on a keyboard or you're even speaking it aloud, if you actually think of those details and do something like that, you are accessing your visual cortex in a unique, profound way. So you are visualizing. So for anyone struggling right now, try scripting instead. And I actually have an interview on my YouTube channel with my friend Chris, who, by the way, she used scripting before she even read my book, before my book ever came out. She used scripting to go from like $300 in the bank to 1.6 million in revenue in only 16 months. And her primary, again, she took action, but
Yeah,
her primary mechanism of getting things moving was daily scripting on her phone. And it's such a powerful process. And people that give scripting a chance, again, me, I don't like handwriting so much, my hand cramps up. So I do spoken scripting where I'll pull up my phone, I'll turn on the recorder app, and I'll leave a message for all the things that I'm grateful for. Some that are here already, but some that are not, but I'm still saying them in present tense. And I will send that to my friend across the country every single day, and he'll send his message back of gratitude back to me. And we've installed this social pressure because one guy doesn't want to let the other guy down. But we've been doing this for like 3 and 3/4 years at this point, not missing one day. It's such a powerful yet easy process to engage in. You just say, I'm so happy and grateful for my new promotion or for all the money that's coming in or whatever, and then just expound on it and give all the details that you want. Like for you, Kurt, I'm not sure how many downloads you have right now, but let's say you want 1 million downloads, you want 1 million subscribers. You could literally say, I'm so happy and grateful that I've got, having over 1 million subscribers. I love the messages I get from people. I love how I keep hearing from different people about how they're finding out about the show. I love how all these random people are coming to me wanting to be a guest that, they've already been on other shows that have already had like, at minimum of 100,000 subscribers. I love how it feels to always put out these news messages and see the download numbers increase more and more and more and more and more. I'm saying this in the present tense, but we don't know, did it happen? Is it happening? Is it going to happen? But doesn't it feel good to describe it that way, to kind of like put those details out and really let your imagination soar?
absolutely. So basically, you're setting yourself up for these things to happen. It's sort of a self-fulfilled prophecy, just
Yeah,
like
you're speaking it into being.
right.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, and people sometimes they go, "Oh, that doesn't happen," but it's funny how when it's a negative, a self-fulfilling prophecy, it always happens, and they can recognize that, but they don't recognize
Yeah.
the positive side of it.
Why is it people can always go, I knew that would happen in a group? Okay, if you knew that would happen, why can't you look at the other way? But also, by the way, again, let's pretend I'm either lying or I'm deluded. If it feels good and no one knows you're doing it, it's like you can just write it out yourself. Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do something for 5 minutes a day that takes your attention from off of your money worries, off of your relationship worries, off of whatever's going on in the world that's upsetting you? Why not take your focus away from that for 5 minutes with an easy, fun thing that you can do?
So you now you mentioned that you actually send yours to a friend, and he sends
Yeah.
this to you. That sounds like, because I was going to ask you before you said that. It's like, okay, so once you script this and you journal it, do you ever go back and listen to them, or is it sort of like writing? Because I don't think people maybe some people don't understand the power of writing something down, just writing it down. You may never even read it again, but the
Yeah.
fact that you wrote it down increases your chances of doing whatever it is that you wrote down. And I don't remember what the percentage is, but there's studies that have been done that show the power of writing. So when you script this and you journal it through your voicemail or whatever it is, do you ever go back and listen to these things, or do you need to?
So I'd say this. I personally rarely do it. Sometimes I do it out of curiosity, but I would, because like the real question is should you, right? And I would say for each person, if it feels good, if it's something you enjoy doing. I would say this, if you're like writing things out by hand or typing them out, keep at least one, one every 6 months, if you keep the one in January, at least then keep the one in June and then the one in January again or whatever, so that maybe 3 years from now you can look back and read it and see all the things that have come into your life. Don't feel obligated to keep everything, but feel free to keep everything. Don't feel obligated to listen or reread anything, but feel free to do all that. So whatever works for someone that they want to do, I'd recommend it, but I would also recommend having some stuff historically so that you can look back every couple of years and actually see that it really is working for you.
Okay, so I'm gonna run this past you. And I was just thinking, I wanted to say to you, so if I script this out and I go, as if I'm journaling, and I go, oh, I woke up this morning and opened up the French doors and saw the Swiss Alps that just looked beautiful in my backyard, and I go, okay, if I script that to you, but see, I can't even say it without laughing because there's a part of me that thinks, oh, that's so ridiculous to look that I could have that kind of life, that I can't say it without kind of chuckling about it because it seems ridiculous. And I find it interesting that I know if I were to flip that script and tell you something negative, I wouldn't have to laugh about it because I could think, oh, that definitely could happen. So why is it that we don't understand that if the negative can happen, definitely happen, why can't we understand that the positive is just as it can happen just as easily as the negative that we've come up with?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's basically just a fixed, old, outdated paradigm that the ego is holding on to, where the ego has accepted that these bad things can happen and you can survive, but it doesn't know about your rate or your probability of survival if all these wonderful things happen, and it's freaking out. By that same token, you said something really important, like, oh, you chuckle, feels a little silly. Well, that's really important because here's something that you want, and you're feeling silly, right? Well, now you want to make a choice. Do you want to keep doing it and see if it stops feeling silly? Or do you also maybe want to say, okay, strategically, how can I do this or phrase this or word this in a way that won't feel silly? So, for example, talking about the Alps, you could say, you know, I one thing I appreciate about one thing I appreciate mornings is having fresh air, is having wonderful scenery. All right, you didn't define that it has to be the Alps. You didn't define that to be this thing, but you can just start talking in broad random terms that still fit the bill for you. And you could also talk about it like in the context of like a vacation of like, listen, I'm not putting down the details of whether I'm living here or I'm vacationing here, but anyone with any kind of level of even minimum money can see a scenario a year from now where if they really want to pour that money in, they can afford to go and see something really nice. So keep it within the realm of possibility that doesn't feel ridiculous, and tinker around with it and always do it in present tense and just see what feels good.
Okay. And and with you saying that, I agree. There's been times where I've made where I've envisioned something and I didn't laugh. I didn't chuckle. Other people did. I didn't. And then I'm sure I told you this story when we talked before the show, where one of the first experiences I had with the law of attraction was when I was a kid, and I'd seen this car and I just fell in love with this car. It was I didn't know the guy who owned it. I'd drive by his house at least once a week and see this beautiful Chrysler Fury. It was black with Keystone mags. The headlights were tinted out. The windows were tinted. It looked. My mother said it looked like the devil's car. It was such a cool car. Anyway, I remember thinking, man, that is the coolest car in the world. And of course, I'm a kid and it's the '70s, so forgive me for my taste, but it's like, but I thought that was the coolest car in the world, and I said, one day, I want to own that car. And I remember saying it out loud one day in a car full of friends, and one of my friends laughed, and I said, "What? You don't think I'll have that car?" And he goes, "No, I think you'll have a car like that, but I don't think you're going to have that car." And I go, watch and see. That was probably my first experience with the law of attraction where I go, I'm going to have that car. It wasn't long after that the car went up for sale. I go and I made a hard right. Like as soon as I saw the for sale sign in the car, I made the hard right into his driveway, knocked on his door, and I said, I see your car's for sale. How much you want? And he said $800. Well, I was working, but I didn't have any money saved. I was just a kid. And I said, sir, I said, I don't have $800, but I will promise you this. I will pay you $100 a week. You hold on to the car until it's paid for, and I will give you $100 a week. And I think he appreciated that I appreciated his car so much that he was willing to do that. So every week I would go pay him. After I paid him $500, he said, "Go and take the car. Just make sure you keep coming and pay the other 300," which of course I did. So now I owned the car that I had was my dream car that I said I would have one day when my friends didn't believe me. The funny thing was is I didn't chuckle when I told him I would own that car because I had a belief that I was going to truly own that car. And I think when to your point that where you said you don't have to first see the Swiss Alps. Say, I appreciate fresh air. Well, I do appreciate fresh air. I won't chuckle saying, "Oh, I opened up the French doors and I smell the fresh air," because that's doable. And so you know so if you can take it to those steps until I can say I opened the French doors and there are the Swiss Alps in my backyard without chuckling, and because I believe that's exactly what I'll have. I believe that you will achieve those things.
Yeah. And if I can add one more thing to that amazing story that we didn't bring in yesterday, um, a really cool thing is, again, I always try to explain this of, listen, do you believe in the law of attraction or not? It works either way. Notice how, like, when you didn't have the $800, you didn't say, okay, I guess I'll just wait and try to save it up and hopefully it'll still be there. It's like, no, it came upon you. And is it from your subconscious mind? Is it from your conscious mind? Is it from God? Is it from the universe? Where did this idea come from to tell this person, listen, let me start paying now at $100? My answer is, again, just like the weightlifting thing, it doesn't matter. What matters is that idea came to you and it came through you. The action, the decision that you made to go there and bring that to that person and make them that offer that, I dare say other people would not have thought of. Other people would have been a little more defeatist about the whole thing and either said, hey, it's not going to be available in 8 weeks when I can build this up, or something else. You made that different choice. And I would argue, I would assume that, like you said, the way with which you presented the offer, the person saw, he heard it in the passion of your voice. He saw it in your body language. He understood that you meant business. And did he understand this because your subconscious mind, through your belief patterns, had that cadence, had that body language? Or did he understand because frequencies from your mind were sending frequencies to his? Again, it doesn't matter. All that matters is it's what happened and it worked out. And that's the number one argument I want to give to people here. Please don't believe me if you don't want to believe me, but try this stuff. Try gratitude, try visualization, try scripting just for the moment, in the moment of feeling good, and see what happens. Because worst case scenario, you're feeling good for 5 or 10 minutes a day and nothing else.
Okay, so all these steps and these methods are in your book, the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read. All these steps are in there and outlined in a way for people to easily understand and to be able to follow these steps and start implementing them into their life, whether it's a little bit or at a time or whatever it is that they feel comfortable implementing into their life. These are all in that book in the kind of a step-by-step way of getting the most out of the law of attraction.
Yeah, and I don't want to take money out of my pocket, but not only are the methods in my book, I also teach free methods on my YouTube channel. So anyone that doesn't want to pull out their wallet yet, they can. I mean, obviously, like my favorite methods, including the time lapse, which was such a big one for me. That's in my book. It had such an impact on my life. But also, even though the book's only like $4 in Kindle version on Amazon, I do what I can to put this value out there so they can also learn methods from me for free on my YouTube channel. So I highly recommend the book, but if you don't want to pull out your wallet, you can always do my YouTube channel instead. But I would argue, whether it's my book, my channel, someone else's book, someone else's channel, find something that's fun to do and easy to do and user friendly for just 5 minutes a day. And don't be like, oh, it's only 5 minutes. It doesn't make a difference. It makes a difference. Trust me. I speak from my own personal experience and I speak from the experience of other people. I had one person, I interviewed her on my YouTube channel. I have a 90-day program where I just walk you through the methods every single day to keep you on track. She emails me on day 87. She's like, Andrew, I thought I was going to lose my job. I thought everything was falling apart. But, I started your program and now minimum, she was in sales. It's a minimum understanding that I'm going to pull in $100,000 in revenue every single month. She went from worrying that her job was going down the drain to being at that point of certainty. And I'm not taking the credit other than I was a tool or a way by which she facilitated that attitude and that response from her own personal brilliance. I'm saying, again, whether it's my book or someone else's book, these methods work. It doesn't cost anything to try them. I would implore people to give it a shot.
Can you get the book off of Apple as well, or iBook?
So yeah. So basically it's Audible. I'm sorry. So it's paperback and Kindle and audiobook on Amazon, but the audiobook is also on Apple Books and Audible. So depending on whatever format people prefer, I have it all there. My website, lastlawofattractionbook.com, auto forwards to the Amazon listing. So that's very easy. But yeah, I like to keep it in as many formats as possible. That way people have an opportunity to enjoy it in whatever format they prefer.
And what's the name of your YouTube channel?
YouTube's pretty simple. It's just Andrew Cap. That's KAP. So if you go to youtube.com/Andrew Cap, you'll easily find it. And, we'll see when this episode publishes. I mean, I know we're not far behind, but tomorrow, as I was recording this, I'm going to be hitting my 63rd consecutive day of publishing new content. So I've been on a content publishing tear, just trying to give as much value as possible, publishing video after video after video, just trying to give value and help people out.
Just doing one a week, I find to be quite the chore. So for you to do 63 days in a row of putting new content out is just, it's astounding. It's because I'm thinking, God, that's such a undertaking. And how many days do you plan on doing this?
We'll say at least 100. We'll put it that way. The hundred's the minimum. We'll see where we go from there. But I'm looking forward to just really pushing hard and really just making a statement of, listen, if I can do this, and by the way, I edit my own stuff, and by the way, it takes a while. If I can do that, then someone else can do something fun for 5 minutes a day, a gratitude method, and get something out of it. So that's kind of like the message I am indirectly saying right now with this of, if I can do this and drive myself crazy. And by the way, knowing I have to do this, like days that I don't feel like recording, I'm going to do it anyway. Well, you could find a method that's so fun that you're going to look forward to it every single day, that you never have to grit your teeth, that's a choice rather than a chore. It's something you get to do rather than something that you have to do. Anyone can do that if we can do the stuff that we're doing right now.
Right. And that does make a huge difference. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, especially young people who think they want to become YouTube influencers, they don't understand the work that it really takes to edit these things and to get them out there, and how much content you go through. Fortunately, like with me, I don't edit anything, so that's a big plus for me. But but there, we do have to put the intro music in, the outro music in, the description, the introduction I do for my guests, and all these things take time. But like you just said, I love what I do. I love having guests like you on my show. I there's nothing I want to do more than what I'm doing right now, honestly. Other than maybe traveling the world as I do it. Like maybe next time I have you on the show, I'll be at the Swiss Alps and go,
How
hey,
cool would that be, right? We definitely got to have that in your backdrop.
right, and go, Andrew, remember when we talked about me being at the Swiss Alps? Well, guess what? That would be an amazing show. And so, other than that, I love what I do. So it's not like grind, even though it's work, it's not grinding work. It's not something that I don't enjoy it, because I do. I love what I do. And I think for a lot of people, that's also key, is finding what it is that you love and doing it. And I know that a lot of people are poo-pooing on, oh, finding your passion or whatever. I go, look, if I'm doing something, I've been very fortunate that in most of my adult life, I've always done what I love doing. There's been a little few places here and there where I haven't, but for the most part, I've done what I've always wanted to do, and I've loved it. And it makes a huge difference when you wake up every morning and go to work and you go, yeah, this isn't work. This is what I really love doing, and I wouldn't do anything else. So that's where I find myself now with interviewing and having guests like you on the podcast. I go, this, I wouldn't want to do anything else. The only thing that would make this better is if you were in the studio with me and sitting right across from me. And then because then we could go to lunch or something afterwards. It's
Yeah.
a great
Although
discussion.
I got to watch myself talking about Yankees and Derek Jeter for in person, right?
We could
You
talk.
just reach out across the table and get at me.
I was gonna say we could talk about everything except about baseball, maybe. So,
No, I
but
couldn't agree more. And also, you talk about, you're right, people poo-poo on the idea of passion. If that is a struggle for anyone listening right now, you know what? Start with joy. Don't even worry about passion yet. That'll come. But start with joy or fun or something that you can just enjoy doing in the moment, because there's not just one thing. That's also think a misnomer. People think there's only one thing. I mean, there's probably one thing that's above all others, but there isn't just one thing, at least right now in the moment, that's stopping someone from enjoying their life every single day. I would recommend people at least make the effort of trying to invite that in and see what might come to into play for them, and what really might emerge in the form of inspired ideas.
well, I think it comes down to what you said earlier. It comes down to mindset. If you're not enjoying your life, it's because you choose not to enjoy your life. There's a choice there. You don't have to be miserable. Yes, there could be misery all around you, but that doesn't mean you have to partake in it. you know
Yeah.
and so you can choose to go, that I don't want that in my life, just like I spoke about earlier. I don't have negative people in my life. I've had to get rid of people in my life only because they chose to continue to be negative, and I'm going, that's not the route I want to go down. I've even had to talk to family members who would call up to have a conversation, and it would just be complaining from the time they called me to the time we hung up, and I just go, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I would tell them, look, I enjoy you calling me and I enjoy talking to you. I don't want to hear the gossip of what's going on in the family. I don't want to hear about the negativity. Let's talk about what good things are happening in your life. And I'm going to tell you, it changed our conversation to where it changed them to where they started becoming more positive, because it's so easy in this world today to just get wrapped up in all the negativity that's out there. You just have to pull yourself back and go, I'm not going to be part of that.
Yeah. And it's like, no, I'm not even going to pretend like life is perfect, but I will say, and I remember I did a video on this not too long ago. The four worst words that you can put together is "I'll be happy when." Because when you are always waiting for happiness, and now you've put happiness on a pedestal and you've put it as this permanently affixed thing that's off in the distance, you're basically not giving yourself permission to be happy ever. To which I would say, listen, we all want joy, and joy is a manifestation, and it is a result in and of itself, but also it can be a strategy, and it is a strategy. And when you give yourself permission just to feel even a little bit of joy for 5 minutes a day, you're strategically lining yourself up, whether it's energetically, psychologically, or physically, or all the above. You're lining yourself up for better things to happen at a higher frequency. And I mean that just not, energetically in terms of speed, in terms of occurrence. Give yourself the gift of saying, listen, life's not perfect right now, but I'm going to enjoy it as much as I can in the moment, and I'm going to give myself permission to feel joy right now and not necessarily have to wait for it, because it's not all the way at the end of the journey. It's in the journey, and it's through the journey.
Very cool. Are there any other words of wisdom that you'd like to impart upon the audience before we end this thing?
Well, I mean, I would say not words of wisdom, but thank you so much for having me. I'm truly grateful and honored to be here. And in the realm of words of wisdom, I would just say, I don't know if I'm coming across as oversimplified or what it might be, but if I am, it's by design, because the mechanism by which things happen for you is a very complicated thing, but the vehicle by which you can drive yourself there can be simple and user friendly. And what I mean by that is, it's not the be all end all, the only answer, but if you just choose, anyone listening, just say, like, listen, I'm going to engage in 5 minutes of gratitude every single day, you will be shocked at how things unfold. Just enjoy it and don't even worry about when or how it's going to come. Give yourself that gift. At least love and value yourself enough to say, listen, whatever's going on in my life, I'm going to take 5 minutes and feel good and just see what happens. See if Andrew's right. And if he's wrong, at least I felt good for these 5 minutes. That's the parting words I would have for your audience, just imploring them, my book or someone else's book, give this a shot, because you have everything to gain and nothing to lose.
So let me give you this analogy that popped in my head as you were saying that. So basically, you're saying, look, when you want to go from your home to a destination, you jump in the car, you put it in drive, and you go. You don't need to understand how the engine works, how the pistons work, how the firing works, the spark plugs, all that stuff. All of that's irrelevant. You know how to put the pedal to the metal and steer the car, and you just go, and don't worry about the intricacies of how a car works in order for you to get there. That's not necessary, right?
I love that. I might have to borrow that. I'll definitely credit you when I do, but I might have to borrow that. I think that's a brilliant way of putting it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Listen, folks. I know that most of us, and unless you're younger, and even then, I'm sure most of you have heard about the law of attraction. I know that all of us probably believe, or close to all of us believe, that on some level that the law of attraction works. So if it works and it's not working exactly the way we want, then there might be something that we need to learn to get it to work. So I would encourage you to get Andrew's book, The Last Law, or the last law of attraction book you'll ever need to read. And you know, $4, I mean, honestly, you spend more than that on a coffee at Starbucks. So here's a book that can change your life, and for the better, unlike that frappuccino you might buy to put some extra sugar and fat on your body. So and do something good for yourself, and start by what he was just saying. Even if you take 5 minutes a day and find things to be grateful for, and start practicing it that way, and see if it changes your life. Give it a chance. Don't just say, oh, that never works. See if it doesn't work. He's challenging you, so take him up on the challenge. You might be surprised. So Andrew, thank you for being on the show. I look forward to actually reading your book, and implementing the things that you talk about in there. And here's the thing: when it works, I want to have you back on the show and go, let's look at the difference in my life from before I read your book till afterwards, and where I implemented these things, and let's see if these things actually work. And I believe they will.
Kurt, that would be awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I would love to come back and be a have a front row seat for your good news. And again, thank you just for the intentionality of your questions and the care with which you conduct these interviews. I think anyone can have a podcast, but not anyone can make a valuable one. So I just want to give you props and give you respect for working so hard and being so intentional about making an awesome one. It was my joy and pleasure and a privilege to be a part of it today.
Thank you. You're gonna make me blush. Stop that. Thank you very much. All right, folks, that's our show for today. As usual, until next time, take care, be safe, and right now, go back to wearing your mask until we get rid of this stupid ass pandemic thing. Okay, and take care. Bye.